As the sun rises over the Mighty Squirrel Brewery in Waltham, Massachusetts, so too does the aroma of hydrogen sulfide and dimethyl sulfide. These two odoriferous byproducts of brewing beer can have a negative health impact in large enough concentrations. They can also lead to nuisance complaints from your neighbors. Naveen Pavar, co-founder of the Mighty Squirrel, was approached by his landlord about the problem.
The landlord came and mentioned that they're having concerns from the neighbors. Some of the neighbors have concern about the smells coming out from our brewing process.
So what was the solution? It seems no one had done this before. While he looked on the internet and didn't find a solution, he did find IndustrialOdorControl.com.
No other brewery had done this yet, at least a craft brewery. I'm pretty sure some of the bigger industrial scale breweries, which are the macro breweries, right? The Budweisers or the Miller Coors, they might have done this before, but that they would have spent a few $1 million to figure this out. But we were short of a few $1 million right there. So we're like, how can we figure out a solution, how to get this done? And the first team we spoke to, the first and last team we spoke to was your team.
The problem is, you can't run a moisture-saturated Airstream through a media bed and expect to remove the odors. So the first thing they had to do was remove the steam from the Airstream. Over the course of the next 7 to 8 months, Naveen and his team and IndustrialOdorControl.com worked on coming up with a solution. Industrial Odor Control's founder, Lou Pagano, explains the patent-pending solution to the problem.
We were tasked with eliminating some odors that the landlord and other people find unpleasant. There's a lot of odors incorporated when you're brewing beer. Most of the odors smell a little bit like a bakery because of the yeast, but there are two compounds that we found that are odorous and most people do not like, and in certain concentrations, they're not very healthy for you. You have hydrogen sulfide and you have dimethyl sulfide. Both of these compounds are the main causes of odor concerns coming from a brewery. So our task was to eliminate these odors for the Mighty Squirrel. So the system we developed has several different components, and we'll go over each one, and then I'll go through the flow of the system. The first component we're going to discuss is going to be our carbon filter and pressure blower. This vapor scrubber doesn't just have activated carbon in it, it has some other medias that we use that are specifically tailored for dimethyl sulfide. It has a pressure blower on it. The pressure blower is what is going to move the air through the system. Okay? Now, in order to remove the odors from the system, there's a very special thing we need to do. We need to remove the water from the Airstream. The odors are caused when they're boiling the wort, and then when they drain the wort into a whirlpool to separate the solids from their beer. Okay? So once we go from our carbon filter, we're also going to have what's called a cyclonic Thermistor. A cyclonic Thermistor is used to separate liquids from an Airstream. Okay? Now, when they're boiling their wort, the air is super saturated, okay? Which means that there's more water in it than the air can hold. That's why when you see steam coming out of a steam vent, you see water dripping all over the place. So we needed a way to lower this temperature because we need to get the Airstream down below the dew point so the water comes out of gas phase and goes into liquid phase. Any water that's in gas phase will pass right through the Thermistor and into the filter, and the media will get saturated. So what we developed is a patent-pending air admittance tea. This tea was specifically developed for the beer breweries so that they can still brew their beer with or without the system running. If the system's not in use, we have a special gate valve, which the customer simply has to open up, and they can brew their beer like they normally would. With our system off, steam would just rise out and come out of our rain cap. When the system's in operation, we're going to have steam coming out of their kettle vent where it's going to be mixed with fresh air. Okay, the amount of fresh air will depend on the brewery. Okay, so every system would be different. Once this cooler outside air is mixed with the steam, we're going to begin the condensation process. So our air and steam mixture goes through the piping. Along this way, it will cool slightly. So we've installed a drain. Any water that condenses in this inlet piping will come out through a drain and drain down through the roof pipes. The next step is going to go to another patented item, our air admittance lateral. This air admittance lateral has an air cleaner and an adjustable valve. What this does is this is going to allow us to introduce outside air, again, that's cooler than the vent stream air, to ensure that we've dropped down below the dew point. So now we're going to have liquid water in an airstream instead of water in a gas phase. It's going to enter what's called a cyclonic thermistor, which, similar to a whirlpooling of beer, it's going to spin the airstream and separate any water solids, and it will go through what's called a thermistor pad, again allowing any water to condense and drain out. Any water that it removes comes out through this drain, and again safely over to a roof drain where it can be disposed of. Once we leave our cyclonic thermistor, we're going to have an airstream that has a relative humidity of approximately 94% as we measured it. 94% humidity, you can run this through a media filter. So now we have dried air, hydrogen sulfide, and dimethyl sulfide entering into one additional air admittance lateral. This air admittance lateral is used for maintenance. In the event that the carbon and the media that's in our filter gets saturated with water, you would need to dry it out. That's what the purpose of this valve is. Customer simply opens up the butterfly valve and lets the system run for a few hours, and that will dry the media out for the next operation. This normally wouldn't need to be used, but in certain instances, major temperature change, might be raining out, they might need to do that, which is why we include it. Once it passes by our air admittance lateral, we go into a blower motor. Pressure blowers are not airtight, none of them are. So what we've done is we built an air box to go around the blower motor. This air box is connected to a vacuum line, which you can see a little piece of it over here in the picture here, which will vacuum up any gases that leak past the blower seals. The other purpose of that vacuum line is to draw fresh air across the blower motor to prevent it from overheating. Once we leave our pressure blower, we're going to go into a media filter. This is a high flow radial scrubber built and again designed by IndustrialOdorControl.com. Okay. In here we have two different medias that are specifically designed for high water humidity and also to eliminate hydrogen sulfide and dimethyl sulfide. What we measured coming out of the vent stacks was 15 to 23 parts per mil of hydrogen sulfide and more than 15 parts per mil of DMS. Okay? Both of these compounds become odorous at approximately 1 part per mil. Some people can smell these compounds as low as 0.3 parts per mil. Okay? When both kettles are running, because this system is tied into 2 kettles and a whirlpool, when both kettles are running, we've measured the outlet of this filter at 0 parts per mil of both hydrogen sulfide and dimethyl sulfide. Okay? Eliminating any noxious odors, making everybody in the area happy. Connected to our media filter, we have what's called a Magna Helic pressure differential gauge. The job of this gauge is to monitor the filter to make sure it doesn't become clogged. It lets the customer know when it's time to service its filter. Okay? During normal operation, it's between 4 and 6 inches of pressure drop. This reading would vary depending on the size of the filter and the size of the blower you need for your system. If we reach 8 inches, that lets the customer know it's time to dry the filter out, or if the filter is dry, it's time to change the media because it's become contaminated with outside particles.
Thanks to a collaborative effort through Skype and phone calls, site visits, and research, IndustrialOdorControl.com helped the Mighty Squirrel resolve its landlord's concerns.
We've been working together for like 7 months now, 8 months here. So we approached MST in December and now in August, and it seems we have a good solution right now, which is going to fix, which is already fixing for the last 2 weeks, fixing the issues of DMS and also the H2S both.